Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the High Elves, going to be taking on the Vampire Counts, so let's get to the builds. Allarielle the Radiant, I should say Allarielle the OP, leading the way, and Allarielle is a little bit OP right now, mostly just because her melee defense is really good while she's up on the Eagle, and she's also incredibly fast and hard to catch. Meaning that she is extremely hard to kill. She also does a pretty decent amount of damage, all things considered, just because she doesn't actually have martial prowess, but just in general, being a high elf, her stats are quite good. 62 charge bonus, and of course, the fact that she has an Earth Blood, which is only 4 winds of magic, is just absolutely insane. She's super efficient at healing and can put out a lot of healing. Not to mention, she's got Tempest, which is one of the best air control spells. I know a lot of you guys aren't a big fan of this spell. I am, mostly just because of the vampire counts right now, because the Red Duke Terrorgeist cycle charge spam is the worst thing in the world, so I honestly don't mind this spell because of that. So, in terms of the rest of the loadout, of course, we got Star of Averlorn, Stave of Averlorn, Shieldstone of Isha, and the Boon of Isha, which, just a quick reminder, guys, this does imbue area of effect magic damage, so ethereal units are pretty much a no-go against the High Elves, because you can pretty much guarantee that Allarielle is going to be on the field with this, or maybe Techless with Flaming Sword of Ruin, maybe. But anyway, we've also got the Star Dragon, of course. Front line is going to be some Spearmen. We've also got the Pure Main Company for a bit of armor piercing, armor sundering. I'm quite a big fan of these guys. In general, they're just a great synergy type unit. That armor sundering in particular helps your non-AP units like Lothern Seaguard, for example, or Dragon Princes do much better against armored targets, so really like combining them with other units. We do have 2 of the aforementioned Lothern Seaguard and 2 Dragon Princes, and that pretty much rounds out my build. For my opponent, he's got the Red Duke, or sorry, Manfred actually, up in the air on the Zombie Dragon, so this is going to be pretty expensive regardless of his spell loadout here, but he's got Soul Blight, not too bad, Invocation of Nehek, and Gaze of Nagash, as well as Raise Dead and Wind of Death, so quite a few spells. Manfred's probably very expensive, and we're going to go ahead and open up with a Tempest on him, obviously. Front line is going to be Skeleton Spearmen out on the flanks. We've got some Graveguard with great weapons ranked up quite a bit. These guys still, despite their ranks, have just terrible stats, which is why I'm not really a fan. We've also got Skeleton Warriors, some regular Sword and Board Graveguard in the front line, supported by a White King, more Skeleton Warriors, and Spears in the back. So, without further ado, oh, I totally forgot, of course, over here. Unit of Blood Knights also ranked up quite a bit. Now, this makes a little bit more sense because these guys definitely have the stats to take on the High Elves. But that being said, Manfred is not doing too badly, honestly, despite the Tempest and the fact that he's getting his face eaten by a Star Dragon. He's doing okay, you know, he gave himself an Invocation of Nehek, and actually now that the Star Dragon is starting to take some good chunks out of him, he is going to take some damage there, but you can see this is kind of a good demonstration of how melee attack and defense works here, because you can see some of the swings don't actually do any damage. Essentially what that means is the roll to hit failed, and the attack did no damage. So that's just a quick reminder, guys, when you see those attack animations, especially the melee attack of the attacker rolling against the melee defense of the defender, and I believe the base chance is 35% plus, you know, the melee attack if it's over the melee defense, or minus if it's under whatever amount that would be. So just a quick reminder. Anyway, the Red Duke's going to do exactly what he should and dive down onto the ground to get away from the Star Dragon, where he has definitely overwhelming numbers, and you can see the Vampire Counts are going to come in a quick charge, trying to crumble away these Skeleton Warriors quickly so that I can free up more of my forces, because again, my opponent does have a pretty severe numerical advantage, and oh man, we got some match combat animations of these dragons going down here as the Star Dragon comes down to the ground and starts to duke it out with the Red, sorry, not the Red Duke, I'm so used to the Red Duke, but Manfred actually up on the Zombie Dragon. And looks like he's going to be summoning up some zombies. Very well played there, just to kind of distract the Star Dragon. Over here, we've got the Blood Knights engaging with the Dragon Princes, getting the Star of Averlorn cast on them. And we also have High Elf Spears supporting. They were able to hold off the Skeleton Spears from properly supporting. You can see them kind of forming a line between the Blood Knights and the Skeleton Spears. So an interesting engagement, but the healing and everything definitely going in favor of the Blood Knights, and more matched combat animations from these dragons as they swoop through the air and then come crashing back down to the earth. And it looks like Manfred is just doming that Star Dragon. He's honestly not taking much damage here on the ground. So Earthblood going down. We're going to try and keep that Star Dragon online, obviously. Allarielle, perfectly safe up in the air at this point, just to act as a pure healer. And with that nice, efficient 4 Winds magic Earthblood, that's arguably a little bit OP, yeah, she's going to be just fine here. So, oh, more match combat animations as these guys continue to just slam each other down. It looks like the Star Dragon actually got the better of the engagement that time. But over here, these Blood Knights still hanging on, and as the combat starts to turn a little bit more grindy, the Dragon Princes, their lack of anti-large bonus is going to start to show here, as these units are very comparable in terms of their stats. And the High Elf Spearmen also honestly don't have huge melee attack. So, yeah, the Blood Knights surviving honestly quite long here, and you can see the Hounds doing a great job chasing off these Lothern Sea Guard. That's great use of those Hounds there, and the infantry for the High Elves is starting to slowly crumble away here. Spearmen just getting overwhelmed by way more unit models than they can handle. The, oh, it looks like another Tempest going down on Manfred as he did pop back up into the air to try and use his breath on the Dragon Princes over here. Over on this side, I haven't actually given much attention to this engagement here, but the Pure Main Company were able to cut through one unit of Sword and Board Graveguard, and now being supported by these Dragon Princes, are able to cut through this ranked up unit of Graveguard with great weapons as well. I'm pretty sure they could take them 1v1 just because the Pure Main Company have such better stats. But the Star Dragon and Manfred also coming down to fight on top of these guys momentarily. We're going to dump an Earthblood into this pocket just to catch all of the elite units in my army. Well, not quite all of them, but most of them in this pocket here. Manfred looks like he's coming after Allarielle. Unfortunately, doesn't have Dance Macabre, which would allow him to be able to keep up with Allarielle. And I don't often see Vampire Counts players bring Dance Macabre on ladder, and I'm not really sure why. Honestly, especially against the High Elves, who just across the board have, on average, some of the highest melee defense of any faction in the game. Dance Macabre is an essential spell at being able to make your melee units effective. I mean, granted, this sort of overwhelming unit model tactic does work. You can see, despite the fact that the Vampire Counts have won the infantry engagement pretty decisively outside of the Pure Main Company here, who are kind of out on the periphery, the balance of power is still very much in my favor, and that's mostly due to the leadership damage, of course, on Manfred. Vampire Counts units just generally have terrible leadership and terrible stats, so if you can negate their support and their leadership, that is going to, cut the head off the snake, so to speak, and they will just crumble away. You can see Manfred unleashing one more breath here, only into some spearmen. I'm not sure that actually was super effective, but that Tempest did catch him, so he's taking damage from that. He is up to his healing cap, so credit to my opponent being able to keep Manfred alive, but the Star Dragon's going to unleash his own breath point blank into Manfred and just bring him absolutely to the brink here. You can see Manfred down to 150 hit points. The Star Dragon comes down, and Manfred barely squeaks away here, but at this point he is crumbling, so, he actually looks like he did stabilize, so Manfred's still alive with 73 hit points somehow, but Allarielle's probably just going to come tap him in the back and he'll fall over. Nope. Oh, yep. Oh man, just Allarielle with the kill steal there from the Star Dragon, but anyway, the Dragon Princes come charging downhill, and at this point the Graveguard are going to try and hold out here, but again, the lack of leadership, and just generally being terrible at combat, the Vampire Counts units are just going to crumble away, and it will be victory for the High Elves. So, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that one. Not necessarily the most, high-level tactical game, but a good demonstration of, the High Elves and kind of what makes them so good at air-to-air combat, especially against the Vampire Counts. Also a good demonstration of kind of melee attack and defense there. Hopefully you guys now understand the value of Dance Macabre and why you need to bring it, especially in matchups where you're going to face just across the board high melee defense like the High Elves. In terms of an army breakdown here, the front line of Spearmen honestly did pretty well holding out. You can see we're able to cut through a lot of the chaff of the Vampire Wells fairly well, but the Graveguard did quite well. 98 kills on this unit of Graveguard with great weapons, so I do sort of see the merit there of dumping some chevrons into these guys. I still think you're going to get better value out of regular Graveguard because they're cheaper and they have better melee defense, so they can hold out for a little bit longer, but we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And then, yeah, the Pure Main Company here, 221 kills, able to cut through a lot of Graveguard out on the flanks, and of course a lot of chaff units as well, synergizing well with the Dragon Princes out on that flank, and just the two of them combined were able to cut through a good portion of my opponent's army there. 68 kills on the other unit of Dragon Princes that was just kind of grinding with the Blood Knights there. You know, they were at least able to hold up the Blood Knights and eventually beat them down. It did take them quite a long time, longer than I would have liked, but still, we got the job done. And of course, a Star Dragon, 2 chevrons, 51 kills, taking down Manfred and a whole bunch of Vampire Counts, chaff, and other units, so that's good stuff. Allarielle didn't really contribute much besides being OP at healing, and yeah, Allarielle is definitely OP. So how would you nerf Allarielle? Well, number one, I think you need to nerf her melee defense on the Eagle, just to make her a little bit easier to take down in melee, because she is very tanky right now, and the fact that she's so good at healing means that it's just super frustrating to deal with for a lot of factions, especially for the Vampire Counts, who, if she goes up in the air and she has Tempest and like a Star Dragon to protect, they can even go heavier in the air and bring maybe another dragon or like some Phoenixes or something, even Eagles. Like, it's just hard to get at her in the air for the Vampire Counts, and they don't have any range units to shoot at her. And just for a lot of factions, you know, if you don't end up bringing enough range units, it can be really hard to take down Allarielle at the end of the day. So I definitely think a nerf to her melee defense would be warranted. Tempest is what it is. You know, I'm hesitant to really change that spell too much until the flying cycle charge spam from the Vampire Counts gets changed. I mean, obviously my opponent didn't go down that route, so we weren't really challenged too much in that way, but it would have been interesting if he had a couple Terrorgeist there to see if the Manfred and the 2 Terrorgeist would have been able to take down the Star Dragon, although at that point his ground force would have been so tiny that it probably would have just got crushed by the High Elves on the ground, so it's tough to say, but yeah, again, one more time, just again, for the Vampire Counts, make sure you bring Dance Macabre pretty much always, especially against the High Elves, and I would say like the Dwarves and other factions with good melee defense across the board, but especially against the High Elves. Because of that martial prowess, you really need that extra melee attack to get through, and just as a quick demonstration, you can see, I mean, none of the infantry here have over 30 melee attack, except for the Feasters in the Dusk, who are just terrible against the High Elves because they have literally no armor-piercing damage almost. So I personally like the Graveguard with shields more than the Graveguard with Grey Opens. Yes, you don't have the armor-piercing, but you still get anti-infantry. Maybe not quite as much. Let's see, 8 for these guys and 10. So it's not actually that much of a difference. You don't get the armor-piercing, but you do get better melee defense and, more importantly, silver shields, 55% missile block chance, and of course the High Elves, being a powerful missile faction, can kind of net you down and just gun down, so to speak, high value units. So I definitely like the Graveguard with shields a little bit better here. It also allows you to just go wider because, again, they're a bit cheaper. So something like this, obviously, Manfred is a very competitive choice. Bringing him up in the air against the High Elves is a huge risk, as we saw, so I'm going to put him on the Barded Nightmare there. Soul Blight is actually a really solid spell to tear away a High Elf's armor, and it will help these non-armor-piercing Graveguard do a bit better against armored infantry, so we are going to hang on to that. I'm also going to get Invocation of Nehek. Dance Macabre, of course, the essential Dance Macabre. Regular is just a single target, but if you overcast it, it is an area of effect. Only 8 winds of magic for a awesome melee attack bonus of 26. And it also gives 24% speed, so like in that situation where the Manfred, I've done that like 3 times now, Manfred was chasing Allarielle, he could have popped that on himself to give himself a bit of extra speed, and may have been able to potentially catch up to her enough to get a couple of attack animations in, which in and of itself can be very key. So a huge fan of this spell, and I will continue to preach its value until I see every single Vampire Counts player bring it, especially in this matchup. And we're going to go ahead and cut Gaze and Gash. I'm really not a fan of this missile attack spell. And Curse of Years, not really the best here. It is good against the Greenskins, but I'm not a fan here. And Wind of Death is just expensive and potentially very risky. Fun to bring sometimes, but in a more competitive sense, I would say definitely leave it at home. And this is one of the tougher matchups for the Vampire Counts, so I do think that this is one where you maybe need to go with a little bit more of a competitive build, even to just have a chance of winning. But Anyway, from here, we can go a little bit cheaper on the infantry. We're going to grab the Graveguard. We are going to grab the Sternsmen, though. I guess they are a little bit more expensive, but just the overwhelming amounts of unit models is definitely a good idea. You know, the Skeleton Warriors and the Skeleton Spears and everything. Definitely a good idea. I'm going to get 2 Blood Knights rather than just the 1, and rather than chevroning up, we're going to go for a little bit more numbers here. Blood Knights, of course, going to give you that elite anti-large power to take on dragons and things like that. You want to make sure to try and cycle charge them as much as possible, and this Dance Macabre, primarily you want to be dumping it into these Blood Knights if possible, because you're going to get the most value from putting it into there. I mean, Blood Knights, just baseline, 32 melee attack, plus Frenzy gives them an additional 8, so they have 40 melee attack, you know, while their leadership is up. It also gives them some more charge bonus, so they have one of the highest charge bonuses in the game, good weapon damage, and they also have missile resistance while they're not in melee, which is a nice little extra touch. But in general, if you give them that Dance Macabre, they're going to have, you know, upwards of 60 plus melee attack, and that's good enough to get consistent hits against most high elf units, even with their martial prowess. So that's the main reason why I just really harp on that particular spell in this matchup. It's essential in my opinion. And from here we can go a number of different directions. I personally would definitely recommend a Black Coach here, just to disrupt your opponent's backline and to go after missile units. Corpse Card on Holy Lodestone, this thing, a little bit of a missile sponge sometimes, but it's only 500 points and it gives you some really good support value. And then from here we can do a number of different things. You may want to grab some additional mobile units, like the Dire Pack can be good for keeping a dragon pinned on the ground, because they can chase after him. They're fast enough to chase after him and continue to get hits so that they can't take off. And then from here, maybe we just grab some zombies or something, just for some additional bodies. But yeah, something like this I think would be a little bit better, just to go a little bit less elite and wider. And rather than taking the Great Weapon Graveguard, you go with the Sword and Board Graveguard, bring a few more Blood Knights, and obviously take Manfred on the ground rather than on the zombie dragon. And most importantly of all, one more time, in case you didn't catch it throughout this whole video, bring Dance Macabre, cast it on the Blood Knights, get value and profit, and win, hopefully. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, yeah, so that every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.